this summer, so we've got 28 years in Michigan on them and many other years before that. So we're going to talk about their dawn activity, and I'm going to talk about the males, and then he's going to talk about the females, so figure that out. All right, so you know, when you start to work on a species, you kind of want to have something where you might find something new and something excited, and this might not be the right species then, because we actually know more about the biology of the house wren than any other wild species of bird in the world. And so this is a quote from Scott Johnson from his Birds of North America species account of the house wren. The house wren is really interesting because it does have one of the broadest or longest latitudinal range of any native songbird in the New World. So during the summer, you can see that orange range up at the top, goes up into parts of Canada and breeds throughout much of North America, or of the United States. And the blue there is for the population that we have, you know, up in the northern hemisphere, where it winters down through part of Mexico. What's really interesting is that the house wrens that are in most of Central and South America are actually year-round residents. And so there have been talk about splitting and things, but so far they're still all one species. They do sound pretty similar if you go down to one of those places and happen to hear them. Okay. So house wrens, you probably all are familiar, are small birds, little brown jobs. They're pretty small. An ounce is about 23, 24 grams, so they're about half an ounce, so you can think about that. They're relatively small. And what we like about them in part is that they're cavity nesters, which means we can put up artificial cavities for them and get them to nest in our nest boxes. They tend to be double brooded for the most part up here, meaning they'll have 2 sets of young in a season. They are migratory, and I hope they've all taken off by now, because this weather would not be very good for them. Although in eBird, at least in our county, there are records through the first week of October. And they are insectivores, which is also why they need to get out of here at this point, because there's not going to be a lot for them to eat. They are very opportunistic in terms of cavities, and you can see this is one of the paintings by Audubon of the house wren. They used, like, somebody threw an old hat just up on a peg, and must have been a hole in that hat, and that's the nest. We've had them nest in a pair of shorts that somebody hung on a line. We've seen pictures of them nesting in skulls and other kinds of cavities that you might not think of so much. So we've been studying them in Michigan now for 28 years. We've got, in the past, we've had a lot of students work with us, and we work at White House Nature Center, which is owned and run by Albion College. And if you get over to Calhoun County, you're very welcome to come over there. And so historically, what we have done is do a census of the nest boxes every day, kind of looking at what's going on. And I have a banding permit, so I band the adults and the young. There is an adult house wren up there, one of our boxes. We do get a number of different kind of predators, and you'll notice on the bottom of the box, kind of hanging, that's a pop bottle. And we get white-footed mice in our boxes, so that's designed to help try and keep them down. So one of the potential other nest box users. So I'm going to talk about the males, and what they do in the morning is they sing. And house wrens, like many other songbirds, have a very intense dawn chorus or pre-dawn singing. And this whole topic of the dawn chorus has been of interest for a lot of people for a long time. And so a number of very noted naturalists have worked on that. Aldo Leopold out at 3:30 in the morning recording birds and what they're doing. This is one of our former students, Tammy Calvin, actually recording house wrens. Tammy was one of the students, she did not like how early she had to get up for this project, but she did it, so it was good. So kind of looking at that. And so I, for a long time, went out with a parabolic recorder and tried to record the songs of the birds. They've since come out with passive acoustic recorders, green boxes you can put out, and they do the recording for you. So anyway, so the house wren has been known for its song, and this is, I won't mispronounce that, but you can see this long name for the house wren from the Ojibwe, which means makes a big noise for its size. And if you have a house wren near your house or anywhere, you've heard them, and they sing a lot, and they are loud for the little size that they have. So this quotation, I won't read the whole thing, but basically, you know, it could go off under your windows like some mountain spring, and it bubbles up and tumbles over itself in cascades. And so the song bubbles, ripples, and cascades in a miniature torrent of ecstasy. All right, maybe, I don't know. So anyway, so there's a very rich literature on dawn chorus. It's been looked at for a lot in different birds. And there are a couple ideas. One is that at that time of day, it tends to be still compared to later in the day when the winds pick up more. So the sounds carry very well. And so that's one idea. Another idea is that, you know, birds don't really see that well in the dark. In fact, they don't see nearly as well as mammals in the dark. And so the male wakes up, starting to get light, can't see well enough to feed, so he might as well sing. So that's one idea. And so the other is that there are some other ideas there, that in the morning, this song, he could be telling other males, I'm here, this is my territory, but also trying to attract females and get females going. A really interesting paper from about 20 years ago was looking at some ideas related to this, and actually suggested there are physiological limits in terms of when a bird starts to sing, and that you can actually predict the sequence of who's going to start earlier in the morning based on their pupil size of the eye, and so how much light they can gather. So if you think about it, if you've ever gotten up really early and tried to track the dawn chorus, where we live over in Albion, the earliest songbirds that are starting are the cardinals and the robins, right? So they're a little bigger. Then you might get, say, a catbird, and then you might get some, and the wrens come in a little bit later because they're small. And so it's kind of interesting to think about that. And then there are a variety of people that have spent their whole careers looking at song, and one is Don Kreutzma, and he has done a tremendous amount of work on a variety of species, including several wrens, but not the house wren. And so this is a picture of Don out in the field with his parabolic microphone. He's written several books, and if you want a good read on this, I would encourage you to look at Don's books. But one of the things he found that we were really interested in was that males of a variety of species actually begin their dawn chorus over at their territorial boundary, not at their nest site. So trying to think about what that meant and how that impacted when we get to the females. So we're thinking about what's going on there. Okay, next slide. So house wrens do sing a lot. If you have one near your house, you know this. And so we did this one day. We had a couple students, and we went out and we traded off who was there standing with a clicker and just counting the songs of a single male. And so this is, I had the early couple hours, I'll just say. But we're just sitting there, standing there, clicking away. And you can see in this first hour, this particular male sang over 600 songs. He did not actually take a break until a little bit into the second hour, when presumably he has to feed or do something for a bit. And you can see that early in the morning, they sing a lot. They're still singing. That guy was still singing at 8 o'clock at night or 8:30, but not so much. So kind of looking at these things. And males sing these very complex songs, all right? So most of you would probably recognize the song of a house wren. Those of you who have Merlin now app are seeing lots of sonograms. When you record bird songs, you get to see the spectrogram. And so this is a house wren song. It'll play twice. Whoop, if he hits the right button. You have to go, yeah. Oh. So, and so we can take a look at these. I've recorded lots of house wrens and can put them into various song programs where you can actually analyze, and you can have a program and it measures how long. This is the introduction part, and then this is the trill section, which is louder at the end. And so what we're pretty sure about is that the introduction is the part for attracting the female. And the trill, the louder part, is for telling the other males, this is my territory. So this is a territorial message. So we can also look at this a little differently. This is the same song, and this is looking at the amplitude or loudness. And you can see here's well, there's background noise, right? But here's the intro, and then you can see the trill part is considerably louder. So I measured many songs of house wrens and looked at these, and just a couple of basic findings. Unmated males who are trying to attract a female sing more than mated males. All right, so I'm trying to get my female, let's go. And they also sing both more songs per minute and more songs per hour, so depending on how you look. They also sing longer songs, and that's because they'll have a longer introduction than do the mated males. So it's kind of like courtship, and you get nice various things that you might give to your prospective mate and whatever, and then things, you get married, whatever. Oh, sorry. So whatever happens. But anyway, so we looked at this, and what was fun was one time I was out, there was the same male, and he had one female in a nest box, and it was the day that she had laid her 5th egg. So he already had this female, right? That was in the bag kind of thing, or in the box. And he was actually then flying up to the top of a tree and singing, trying to get a second female. Then he would go back down to the first female. So I was able to record for a half an hour, it's almost 20 years ago, but to get his songs. And what was really interesting was that you can see, here's a typical song when he was singing to his primary female, and a very short introduction, just right here is the intro, and it was about 1.5 seconds, a little less. Is that gonna play? Nope. No, well, anyway. Then when he would try, that's no good, Doug. All right. When he would try to sing, yeah, well, that might be helpful. Well, when he would sing to the, trying to get a new female, he, his songs were about a second longer, so about 40% longer, and much of the length was both certainly a longer introduction. Oh, there we go. All right, so that's the first one, about 1.5 seconds. And then when he was trying to get a new female, maybe, about 2.5 seconds. So I think what you did was end, yeah. So if you just heard it, you'd say, oh, it's a house wren. It kind of sounds the same. But when we start to measure things, you can see some differences, and that's statistics. They are different, so definitely longer, this one. So it was kind of fun to get one guy going back and forth. And in that half an hour, I got 4 bouts where he was singing to his female that he already had, and then another 3 bouts where he's flying up and trying to get a new one. So, all right. They also occasionally do partial songs where they'll just either do the front or the back end of a song. And I was able to find about 133 of these. And what was interesting is if it was an unmated male, pretty much all of the partial songs were just that intro, the part that's trying to get the female. And you know, he might leave off the trill, but if it was a mated male, then more likely it was the territorial part, you know, sometimes the intro, but more likely the trill. So kind of thinking about this, we know what males do. They sing a lot. They start on maybe the edge of the territory, maybe not. That's what Doug's going to kind of get to us. And he's going to address what the females do in the morning. So you can, I can't see.
Good job. So the question, so we, for a century, what males do in the morning has been the focus of scientific ornithology and is really the description or characteristic of birders. I think there's a word in Swedish that means go out in the early morning to listen to birds. I mean, it's a thing, listening to male birds. So, but what do the females do? And why don't we know? And so one answer might be, well, it's dark and they're not singing, so it's hard to know, and that's why we don't know. And another possibility is it's another example of the sort of sexist male perspective. Male ornithologists never thought to ask the question. It seems pretty plausible. I don't know if you know anything about medical research, and all the drugs were designed for a average-sized male, and there are lots of examples. So for whatever reason, this is a sort of unknown sort of piece of ornithology. So did the females arise at sunrise with their mates? And I don't know, they're off doing something? Or do they wait in their nest until there's enough light to forage? Just what is it that the females are doing? And this is, you can ask this question sort of generally about females, but we have the opportunity to look at a very specific and narrow case because of the kind of depth and focus we had on house wrens. And so the sort of our answers about what females are doing apply to this narrow house wrens nesting in boxes during incubation. And the biological sort of circumstances of house wrens and our study are really sort of ideally fit for addressing this question. So the house wrens are socially monogamous, so we have a male and a female, and we can differentiate between them, and there's not a third bird coming in there. The males guard territory, they're territorial, they sing, and so we can figure out what they're doing. Only the females incubate, so if a female's in the bird's in the box, we know it's a female. They're small diurnal insectivores. They need to get out and feed, and they don't have a lot of body mass to sit around and read the paper in the morning or something. They have to get out about their business. They're secondary cavity nesters. That means we can put up boxes where we can get at them instead of open cup nesters. This would be very difficult to do this study with open cup nesters. And they're double brooded. That means that the males, as Dale was just describing, are still interested in singing even after the female started her first clutch. So there's continued singing. So our sort of working hypothesis here was that the males are defending their territories at the first navigable light, as illustrated here on the left, and that the females will incubate until they can forage safely. And there's a female sitting her eggs. And so to examine this idea, we were able to use 3 technologies and one little quirk of natural history that we discovered in the course of our study can be a little key part to this. So the male song for this study was monitored with these passive acoustic recorders, little green boxes full of batteries, some software, and little computer cards that record things, and you can program them. And so we programmed them to start recording 1 hour prior to sunrise for an hour and a half. So through the sunrise period, and the microphones were placed right at the back of the box. So right at the box. And I think you've heard a wren song before, but see, no. There's the sound is a little, there it is. Yeah. Nobody, you had to get up at 5 a.m. to record this with a parabolic mic, right? Done autonomously. And so it's not news to scientists or birders generally when house wrens begin to sing, and so the earliest paper I could find on this published in 1930. The first morning song of some birds in DC, and the house wren was in DC, and so the house wrens are known to sing between civil dawn and sunrise. Well-known fact about the house wrens, and so we had to document that. So that's one technology, the autonomous recorders. The second technology are these temperature logging devices that have been miniaturized enough and self-contained. They're called eye buttons. In the upper right, you see in my fingers, and then here's one deployed in alongside the eggs in a clutch of house wrens, and they're about the size of a house wren egg, and with a little Velcro magic, they stick in the nest, and then to get ambient temperatures, we had another eye button on the bottom of the box, and to get a temperature inside the box, we had one inside the box lid. And here's a 24-hour record from these 3 eye buttons, and you can see the nighttime temperature, and it rises and falls during the day. It's always a little bit warmer inside the box, but it's much hotter on the eggs when the female's in there incubating. And this is a centigrade scale, so our body temperature is 37, give you some sort of feeling for that. When the female first leaves in the morning, the eggs begin to cool immediately after she leaves, and the eye button records the time and the temperature, and so you can get this graph. And for this study, we're interested in departure time, but you can imagine there are a lot of other information that could come from this. We know how many times she came and went during the day, for instance. We know when she came in the last part of the day. If the nest failed at some point, we would know exactly when that was. So it's a powerful and useful technology. And so here's the wrinkle of natural history, which would be invisible, has been invisible, until we started using these eye buttons. So sometimes during the night, a mammal, a raccoon, possum, something like that, will investigate these wren boxes. Sometimes destroy the nest, but other times just disturb it. And we had a video camera with infrared illumination, and a sleeping female, and if the box is rattled, they startle awake, and if there's a sufficient disturbance, apparently, they'll leave during the night. Not to get eaten, but fleeing their box at night into complete utter darkness with the poor night vision of a bird. I don't know where they go, but it's evident that they cannot find their way back into the box after the raccoon or predator or deer that's bedding down next to the box leaves. And but they do. We know exactly what they want to do. They want to start incubating again, and so we know when there's enough light for them to go from whatever perch they ended up on when they were evicted. Here, so this bird was evicted at, or escaped at 2:16, and then was able to go back in the box at 5:57. So these, it would be lovely to do the unethical experiment and go shaking boxes, and but I can never get that published, and it's not something I would want to do. The nest, sometimes we see these nocturnal abandonments, and the female never comes back. So there's a risk in nest failure. But it happens in a year when there are more raccoons around. It happens more often. It's a rare event, but it's often enough that it's going to give us insight into a sort of what time of day it is that the females can first navigate and get back to the box. And our third technology, and some of the slides have shown the results of this, are these spy cams, little camera systems, video camera systems with infrared illumination that we could place in the lids of boxes to actually see what the females were doing. And it says here small cameras. When we started, which has been mentioned too many times about how long ago that was, but we used these giant shoulder-held VHS recorders with the giant cassette tapes. It looks like most people in the audience remember this technology. Now probably everyone in their pocket has a cell phone with 2 or 3 cameras in it. So I say small cameras here. These are like gigantic cameras, aren't they? But they're very small compared to other technology. And there's all kinds of stuff that we had to carry around to do these recordings in the field. Okay. So that's our technologies. That's our little piece of natural history, predictions and results. So our first prediction is about when the males sing. So they're going to sing around the time of civil dawn at their territory boundaries. Civil dawn, that's when you can drive around without your headlights on and not be arrested by the police. You can read the newspaper, maybe. You won't have any trouble moving around, and it's defined as with the sun 6 degrees below the horizon. Way too light for you to do your star watching, but so that's sort of when we're expecting the House Wren. And the light levels at civil dawn, this is about, it varies seasonally a little bit, but about 24 minutes before sunrise. And the light level then is the 100th of what it is at sunrise. But that's enough, it's plenty enough for us, and just enough for the birds. And so here's some results. And there's my little time of sunrise. You got the sunrise logo there. And then this is time before sunrise. And so listening to the recordings from the autonomous recorders, when the males start singing, and between 25, 30 minutes before sunrise, about the time of civil dawn. Indeed, that's when males start singing. And we could tell when males sang at the box. Often on the recording, you can hear the male land on the box, or feel like a sonar operator in those old World War II movies when a depth charge goes off. You're listening carefully, and all of a sudden the wren's right on top of the microphone, blasting at. So at the box, they sing. It's right like a minute or so from sunrise. So our second prediction is about when these naturally disturbed females that have abandoned the box in the middle of the night, when will they return? And the hypothesis, or the prediction is the return at the time of the dawn chorus. When there's enough light for the males to sing, maybe that's when the females will return. And so here are some results. There's sunrise again, time before, samples from different years. So there wasn't this every example from our sample. We had eye buttons in every nest, so these kind of natural disturbances were not that frequent, but frequent enough to get this sort of idea that it's pretty close to the time when the males are starting to sing. So when do undisturbed females leave? And our prediction is when there's enough light to forage. And this would be sometime after males sing at the nest. And there's time of sunrise, and then all these bars, they're above the line now, right? And they're leaving 7-10 minutes after a sunrise on average. So if we look at each of these measures for one year, not to confound the samples between years. So the males start to sing, the disturbed females returning to the next, just both before sunrise. Males sing at the nest box at sunrise, and then a few minutes later, the undisturbed females leave. We can refine our original hypothesis to include this idea that the morning behavior of females is cued not just by light levels, but also by the male song. So our prediction is that the females will awaken during the dawn chorus, but depart later, soon after the male has sung at the box, signaling a sort of all clear. inside the box, inside a cavity, the female has no idea about the safety of exiting her nest. And so research out of Scott Johnson's lab find this during the day. You see this behavior, males come and sing at the box, and the incubating female leaves, and that's what we're seeing in the morning. And here's another video that we couldn't get to work, but this is sleeping a female inside a box. You can hear the wren sing outside, and the female opens her eyes and lifts her head. We're able to see if females responded to the dawn chorus outside her box by doing these longer recordings that we had to initiate deep into the night because of the limited capacity of VHS cassette and the batteries and so forth. So here's times on the x-axis here, sunrise at time 0, 1, 2, 3, 4 hours and 2 hours after sunset. And these results were a little surprising to me. So we have a camera inside the box. I'm expecting to look at sleeping female house wrens, and naively kind of thought that maybe they were like people, that they went to sleep and they woke up in the morning or something, and that they would be sort of asleep all the time. And so we had a student look through these tapes, and on the minute, every minute, just tell me what the female's doing. Is she asleep? Is she rooting around in the nest, or preening her feathers or something like that? But 1 out of 5 times throughout the night, the female is in fact not sleeping, and you know, eyes closed and regular breathing. Instead, she's burying her head in the nest or pecking at her feathers. But then, as the dawn chorus is beginning, the proportion of birds that are asleep drops sharply. So the females are becoming more active in the nest box, but they're not leaving as the dawn, even after sunrise. And here's another video that didn't come up, but what this video little clip shows, you can hear a male singing outside the box. In this case, the microphone's with the camera inside the box. So you faintly hear the male singing. The sleeping female lifts her head, stretches her wings, flutters, and exits the box. So, sort of summarizing, so male house wrens begin their dawn song near civil dawn, away from the nest, presumably at territory boundaries. They're concerned with territorial defense. And they first sing at their nest box at sunrise. Females that abandon their nest at night during incubation return early in civil twilight. Presumably this is the level of first navigable light. So this is as early as a house wren can move about in the environment. And this is approximately when the males are starting to sing. Yep. The illumination sufficient for navigation may allow initiation of male dawn song, and undisturbed females become increasingly active within their nest box during the male dawn chorus, but do not depart until prompted by singing at their nest by their male. This might be about 40 minutes after the male's been up and singing, and doing the bird work for the day, the females in incubating. So I want to, Dale and I want to thank you for your attention, and if you have any questions about the dawn behavior of males and females, or anything else about house wrens, and if you want to see the little movie clips, you can come up and see them on my laptop. So thank you very much. Yes, please.
Where do the males go?
Oh, where do they? So if you walk around at dusk, and we did a lot of things with house wrens over the year. One thing we did was put color bands on young birds. So every bird in a particular brood got a red left leg color band or something like that. And then we try to follow them around this after they fledged to see where they moved. And initially I thought it would be impossible to do that with wrens, but it turned out to be halfway possible. And so I spent a lot of time rooting around every day with fledged wrens, and so I sometimes was pretty late in the evening, and so you see them going into dense cover, like a juniper, a red cedar in an interior branch there. So and I think a lot of birds do that. They have a dark, hidey spot that they spend the night. So the female's in the comfy nest box, warming up all the egg mass, and the male's hidden somewhere in vegetation.
Roughly how big were the territories? How big were the house wren territories?
So we spread our boxes. So the habitat is a kind of old field edge sort of thing. And we put up a box, and then 10 paces, we put up another box, and then 20 paces after that, we put up an additional box. So they were kind of paired and spread.
You sort of made the territory.
Yeah. So they would be separated by at least 30 paces, 70 feet, something like that.
May I ask a birding husband question? Because I'm the guy that always has to make the birdhouse.
Yeah.
So are they particular about the size of the hole and that kind of thing, or will they nest in a bluebird box, or they will?
So we actually did, we've published on this. So, if you find a wren house for sale at a craft show, they're often tiny, and they have like a 3/4 inch hole, something like that, too small. So the nest building in house wrens, the male brings in sticks and kind of fills up the cavity, and then the female brings in successively finer and finer material, snakeskin, then their eggs. So we found that if you make a slot instead of a hole, it's much easier for the male to bring in sticks, and the entrance is still small enough to exclude some of the mammal predators, and so you get a faster nest building, bigger nest with the slot. We used two sizes of nest boxes, one to a sort of 4x4 bottom, filled the half gallon of milk carton, which we cut the top off and And so we could monitor nest building by removing the whole carton and weigh it and put it back in. And then we made 6x6 gallon nests with gallon plastic milk cartons in them. They'll build in even smaller spaces, but I'd recommend a slot.
A lot of times the holes they recommend are like 3/4 of an inch, but that's pretty small for the males to raise.
At least an inch, I would say. If it's just a hole, which is easier with just a spade bit on your power drill, but the slot is nice. Other wren questions? Yes, please.
Yeah, my son Malcolm wants to know if you saw variation in the size of the territory based on the vegetation and the habitat.
Ah. So we have a lot of boxes on the field edges, and then we had other boxes, often our gallon boxes, in the old fields. And early in the season, the boxes in the more open areas are getting tree swallows or bluebirds. And the edge things are getting house wrens, or maybe a little earlier, some black-capped chickadees, or maybe a titmouse or something like that. In the second broods, as the field vegetation grows up, the wrens move out into the fields. I don't think that the territory size, well, it's not something that we mapped out. So I described the wrens as being ideal for this study. For a lot of studies, they're not ideal. If I wanted to follow a bird and see what it ate, the house wren would be a terrible candidate for that, because they're very hard to follow as they're in the dense sort of shrubs of feeding. So we didn't map out territories, but I don't think the spacing changed.
So, if you don't mind, then, do you know how crews would try to determine
Oh.
the size of the territory?
Oh, so whether they were at the, so his,
Like, you mean the edge?
yeah, so at boundaries versus the,
Like I said, presumably they're seeing it in the range.
yes,
You mentioned with some of Cruz's work.
yes.
How is it,
So,
there's nowhere to follow.
right, well, so we know that they're not at the box, all right? So you can hear on the recordings that they're distant from the box, all right? And so presumably they're at the edge of the territory. They're certainly not at the nest. And
So when I was doing the work with a parabolic microphone, and so I would have to figure out where the wren was, and generally they were not at the box, right, early in the morning. And so then I could kind of, well, they're in that tree. If they're singing without a mate, they're like usually pretty high, trying to broadcast that song pretty widely. And so I didn't actually ever measure, how far away they were, but yeah, you could do that. That's a good project for you.
so we tried a couple. We put out these recording devices at adjacent boxes and hoped to get the intermediate sound, but it just wasn't practical to do that. Yes?
Do the females sing at all?
Yeah, so rarely, but at the height or culmination of courtship,
During early egg laying.
and during early egg laying, there's a kind of, they have a sweet little bubbly thing that they do.
So you would not necessarily recognize them as singing a full house wren song. And also the same with, I've followed around some young birds, and the young birds do sub-song, which is like babbling in babies, right? And then and so it doesn't necessarily sound like the adult house wren, but the females also, they will sort of go back and forth with the male, and that male that was singing to the female and then going up high, she replied a little bit, but it's not the full, it's more like the intro, and those notes are softer and whatever, so it's kind of, you know, fun. But they're listed as one of the birds in which females do sing, so.
Good.
So
Mike?
natural history question, and I've not seen nearly as many wren nests. I know I've asked Dale this before, but virtually every wren nest I've seen has a woodpecker feather.
Oh.
Did you ever keep track of, and like how, what, sometimes they use put snake skins in?
Oh yeah, that makes sense.
So this.
Do they smell enough to keep predators away? The skin.
So this fascinates me. This sort of maybe the average one lives 3 years or something like that. On maybe 6 days in her life, she collects a snake skin and puts it in a nest or something. How do you get ATCs and Gs and DNA to do that? And I think one hypothesis is, so there are these hypotheses that it's some kind of predator is going to sense the snake skin or something. An alternative hypothesis is that the general program is you start with coarse stuff and you get finer and finer and lighter and lighter, and the finest and lightest thing is snake skin, and we often find the spits of cellophane from cigarette packages or something, other pieces of plastic that are kind of snake analogs. So I think that's what's happening.
Because some of the older literature says that, not for house wrens, but for great crested flycatchers, that they like to put snake skins in there.
Yes. So yes, this. I don't know how you test my alternate idea. It just seems extraordinary to me that the program snake skin. Yeah.
And so when we check nest boxes, when they're getting ready to lay their eggs, we're looking for either snake skin or cellophane, because generally that's a good indicator that the first egg is very likely to be the next day. Not always, but it's really interesting because it gets put in there. And somebody read that book that was, yeah, that was cool because it had the snake skin in there.
There's a picture book back there on the table that's called The House That Wren Built, and it's a cumulative tale like the house that Jack built, and it watches a wren building a nest, and it includes the snake skin in it, and it also talks about spider egg sacs that would then potentially eat the mites to keep the nest cleaner. Is that based on science, you know?
We tend to see more spider egg sacs when in nests that males have started and then not gotten a female, and then it seems that they start to add these spider egg cases, and so one idea, and somebody looked at this, I think in Charlie Thompson's lab in Illinois State, was that maybe they would hatch and eat mites. But we're wondering if it's not showing the female, because spider egg cases kind of look like little pieces of food that I can find, you know, food, right? Or come and mate with me, and I'll help feed the babies or whatever.
This is a really great nest, and so if the male, he's sweetening the deal.
Yeah.
So I was wondering if she said that if snake skin or cellophane shows up right before first egg, is that a signal to the male that she's?
So this would be another thing. So a lot of people don't like house wrens. I mean, we made it out like house wrens are great, and a lot of people, anybody trying to get bluebirds and put up bluebird boxes and secretly probably throwing out house wrens. Don't tell me, But yeah, so they have this fabulous adaptation for competing for scarce cavities, in that they will toss the eggs that they find in foreign eggs that they find in cavities, and they have this marvelous self-prohibition. Once their female starts laying, they won't toss eggs. And we've done experiments with house sparrow eggs, and then, when that supply ran out, we found we could do the experiments with miniature marshmallows. So not all of our technology was high technology, but it's quite extraordinary to put up an additional cavity with a little nest, a cup that you just threw together with a couple of miniature marshmallows in it. You put that up in a house wren territory. If the male's unmated, he'll go in there and become very excited and pop, 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 toss out the marshmallows or eggs, and then if he's mated, and she's laying, he won't do that, and so there might be a signal. How does the male know? So that would be another hypothesis.
Yeah, I can also add that it's worse than just tossing out eggs. Yeah, I remember this. Is I was watching a tree swallow nest one time, and I was for the experiment I was doing. I was holding on to the female, and the male. They had nestlings in the nest. The male tree swallow was up in a perch above the nest, and the male house wren came, started singing, went inside the nest, was inside the nest for a couple of minutes. After he left, it looked like a crime scene because he killed all the nestlings inside of the nest by puncturing them. So they're really ferocious, insidious little birds.
with beautiful melodic songs. Other questions? What do you got?
Yeah. So what's interesting is the males, once he's mated, and his mate, maybe it's this spider, the snake skin or whatever, has indicated she's going to lay eggs. He stops tossing. The female, however, if she knows she has not laid an egg, so if you put an egg in the nest early, it's gone. And it's not the male, it's the female who's doing that. So just, yeah.
But why do they pick on eggs from another species or nestlings?
So these would be in cavities. Presumably
100 cavities, will that stop that behavior?
Maybe. So
Stop it. We have 160.
So there are 160 boxes on our study site, and they still do it.
Oh, really?
But it was mentioned at the beginning, we spent a couple years in Kansas, and we worked on the tallgrass prairie, and there were some house wrens in the gallery forest along the creeks, but mostly there were Buick's wrens. And the range of the Buick wren used to be the house wren in the east. They were the yard wren in West Virginia and through Ohio, and the range has, the eastern part of the range has declined dramatically, and there aren't found much east of Kansas anymore. And it's a little bit of a mystery, and so we investigated this egg tossing behavior in these two species. And the wrens on the prairie were tossers in the way that we've described. The house wrens were tossers, but the Buick's wrens were not. So you could find a Buick's wren and a house wren together if the nesting sequence worked out that way. They seem to get along. But if the house wrens were in this tossing phase, this is another sort of invisible piece of dreadful, vicious aggressiveness, but it just takes seconds. And so the house wrens perhaps because of climate changes, we're expanding their range and surreptitiously killing the Bewick's wrens in the nest. Yep.
Well, there's this interesting question about female song, and somebody probably knows better than I do in the room, but I feel like there's some research on the syncing of canyon wren songs, where the male canyon wren, when the male canyon wren was able to sync with the female canyon wren, it made the mating more likely. Are we seeing, correct me if somebody knows better than I do, but are you seeing that in the house wren at all in terms of the female song?
Can you repeat the question a little bit for the viewing audience at home?
Yeah, so the question was, it was that canyon wrens, right? They found that if the male and female can sync their songs a little bit, they have a better chance of mating. And we see that in house wren. I very rarely got female song that I actually heard or saw. So I heard. So I don't know if that would be the case or not. That would be an interest. There's another question for you this time. Yeah. So we'll give you a microphone and stuff. You can go out.
Whenever I saw females sing, they were interacting with males.
That they'd already.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah.
That's when we saw it, but it doesn't mean that that's not that hadn't started earlier.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And if anybody wants to see the little videos, they're kind of cute, but they're old